Hey, everybody, and welcome to Colorado Sports Connections, other episode of Broncos Weekly with yourself truly, Matt Staffera, my good buddy here, Baylor Braddock. We're here to break down all things Denver Broncos as we head into tomorrow's game. We'll also be live tomorrow for a pregame show with David Slade and myself, and catch us for all of our wonderful segments with Gary and some of the other cool things that we've been doing on that pregame show. So tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. But anyways, Baylor, we're here. We were a little bit delayed. We were looking at Wednesday, then maybe Friday. Logistics, crazy life, work schedules. The gist of life. Yeah, that too. But here we are, finally able to talk some Denver Broncos as we're riding the high of the 5-game win streak, came crashing down, and now we are here. I don't know what the proper term or title for here is, but we're here. So
5-1 in your last 6 is a good way to say where we're at.
But it feels like that leads false hope. Does it make sense? It feels like it leads a little bit of I don't know.
Not for me. So I know we didn't get a chance to preview this Texans game last week, but I did say before the Vikings game, the Broncos have a maximum of 2 losses to still have a legitimate shot. And those 2 losses I had written out. I'm pretty sure on the show I said the 2 losses that we are probably going to face are the Texans in Houston and the Lions in Detroit. And so for me, I said before that Browns and Vikings games, because of us expecting 2 losses here, that's why these the Browns and the Vikings games are must wins. And hey, we won them. For me, that was an important game against the Texans. It would have been huge, especially with Kansas City losing. We would have been 1 game behind them, but we didn't. And I know everyone that a lot of Broncos fans in particular, I've noticed, don't follow the whole NFL. We've got a lot of really great sports here in Colorado, and it's hard to follow all of them and the whole NFL. Man, the Texans are, especially with Trevor Lawrence going down, until we see more from Jake Browning and the Bengals, my money's on the Texans to come out of the AFC. I mean, they're young, yeah, but with that explosion that they have, I mean, it's insane what they can do. And the fact that the Broncos played probably their worst game since probably the Dolphins as far as execution goes, and they still had 4 chances to win it from the 8-yard line. Like, guys, chill. We're okay. And here's the thing. Here's the mindset that I think all of Broncos country just needs to adopt. Super simple. Go 10-7 and let the chips fall how they may. Because the thing is, this is a playoff team in my book. I think they've been playing good enough the last 6 weeks that I think this is a playoff caliber team, whether they make it or not. So if you go 10-7 and let the chips fall how they may, you're going to get in. You might not get in. And you know what? You're not going to win the Super Bowl. That is a foregone conclusion. Well, I'm not arguing that. We are not winning the Super Bowl this year. So you know what? Who cares if we make the playoffs or not? But if you told me at the start of the season the Broncos went 10-7, I would take that. I would take that, especially knowing how crazy the AFC is this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard because you get that little bit, and this is just speaking of Broncos country, because you get that like little bit of high, like this is like it's been so doom and gloom for so long. You go on this 5-game win streak. Oh, everything's clicking. This is the quarterback they're supposed to have. This is the coach they need. This and that, and you start to build yourself up, and then it's easy to see how 1 loss can make you feel deflated. Just because I guess it's become a love-hate relationship at times for some fans with Broncos country.
I agree.
And it's easy to want to buy in. So similar to you, I believe we were actually agreeing about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were talking about these 2 games. I think we were in the same aspect, and I was either it's going to be 1 loss to the Browns or 1 loss to the Texans, and then I was already pretty much circling the Lions as an L. If the Broncos can come out and beat Detroit next week, we're going to be talking about this team in a whole new light, because Detroit is like the team that's built perfectly to completely demolish them. They got a great young tight end. They have two running backs. They run the ball well. They play safe football, and they've gotten significantly better on defense. But we'll talk about Lions in more as we go into next week. But it's just so easy to get built up and then get kicked in and lose that momentum for some of Broncos country. But I mean, they are only a game out, technically a game out. Unfortunately, like you said, it's just getting to 10-7 and the chips are going to fall. And unfortunately, because of the 1-5 start, there's a lot of chips that need to fall in Denver's favor to get that playoff berth. Then you got to also factor in something you also mentioned with Trevor Lawrence going down, Joe Burrow going down, uh, Anthony Richardson going. This is like the year of QB2. Yeah, the list can go on and on. Speaking of that was hilarious in Pittsburgh on Thursday. Literally, the crowd is chanting Mason Rudolph. It took over Heinz Field. Yeah, and that is an unfortunate situation. I mean, the Steelers are a perfect example of a team that doesn't have to play at an elite level to be in a position to take a playoff spot. I mean, Kenny Pickett, the offense was terrible. They were outgained in every single win they have. So it just goes to show there's so many different ways that you can win in the NFL. You don't necessarily need to have Patrick Mahomes. You may be able to find a way to make it work with Kenny Pickett. But one thing that I guess I'm going to argue is we haven't found a way to do it consistently enough with Russell Wilson, at least not as consistent as we had thought when he was signed. We're sitting at, 10-17 through 2 years now. It's not gone, I think, any way any Bronco fan had thought. I mean, I'm not sure. I know we were talking briefly about it before we came on. We're sort of stuck in no man's land, even if this completely falls off the rails, even if we win out. I guess there's not a real positive take from it right now. At least I can't find one. Can you?
Yeah. We're 5-1 in the last 6. I don't know. This is just it's the unfortunate situation of losing as much as we have since the Super Bowl. Is everyone, like you said, it's a love-hate relationship. But here's the deal. When you look at where this team has come from and why they are where they are, there's a lot of unlucky. There's a lot of unfortunate. And I want to take it back to just signing Russ and why we signed Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach. So that, for me, I still don't blame Russ because for last year at all. Not even a little bit do I blame Russ for anything that happened last year. Because all I have seen is every quarterback that Nathaniel Hackett has touched that is not named Aaron Rodgers like the offense is putrid. Like, it is embarrassing what the Jets are. It doesn't matter who's throwing the football. They all look like they shouldn't be in the National Football League. And that's the exact same thing. I've watched a lot of Jets games this year, and it looks exactly like what we watched last year with Hackett as our head coach. Then we're going to fast forward to this year. Now, Russell Wilson, in a new city for his second year with a new team, now has another new offensive system. Now, I remember everyone saying Hackett's system was super complex and hard to understand. And now you're getting Sean Payton, who we all know has complex and hard to understand systems, but at least Sean Payton's are proven. And what we're seeing and what we heard a lot preseason was this is going to take time. It's going to take time for things to click. It's going to take times for things to stick to the wall. But what I don't think people were ready for was how little would stick in those first 6 weeks where you go 1-5, right? So now you got to look at the big picture. We're going to look at the big picture and say, hey, look at this season under Sean Payton. Since things started to click, we can even go back and say that, like, post Miami game, like, we're 0-4. Since starting 0-4, I mean, the Broncos have only lost 2 games. Like, I don't understand where the freak out is. For me, and the way what I've been seeing is we just came off of one of the worst years in Broncos history last year. And here we are sitting at a 500 record with meaningful games to play down the entire stretch of the season. I remember hearing Broncos fans begging to just play competitive football.
Yeah.
Not only are we playing competitive football, we've been playing winning football. And just because it doesn't look pretty, you take one loss that was a very, very, very close loss, came down to an interception in the end zone as time was running out against probably the best still available team in the AFC, and everyone's ready to lose their minds. And it's like, guys, you got to give it more time.
Yeah, I think I could
Any
play
given
the other
Sunday.
side a little bit too. I think the part of the problem is when we look at the when you look at it either way, like let's just look at the 5 game win streak, and I think a lot of the problem or the confusion, or not necessarily confusion, but the stance of a lot of the people who are hitting the panic button is that throughout this entire thing, unless it's being dominated by the one side of the football, it's not necessarily a good game. Like let's say like this is the first game where we see them not get 3+ turnovers, and here it is again an L. We see all the turnovers. It's like the offense still gets stagnant. It's like unless they're pleasantly within the 25-yard line, it's not resulting in a positive thing. Because like if we go back and they look at those games, even though they're wins, it's like how many times this game should not have been like, oh my God, let me hold my breath to the very last minute, despite the numerous gifts, the numerous opportunities. I think that's the problem. They look at it. They look at it like, okay, that's good enough to win right now. But when we're sitting here and we're on the brink of it this is Raiders, Broncos, win, you're in, win, you lose. If that defense can't be dominant enough, here we are going to be sitting at that 9-win versus 10-win not getting in. It's just that we haven't been able to see the offense, especially Russell Wilson, be able to take control of the game when he's been gifted those opportunities. I think that's what has a lot of people questionable. And you also look at it, you hear everyone saying, you hear big people in local media, they also say, like, look how simplified this is. This isn't what we were expecting to have. We should not be expecting a high school version of the offense when you have a quarterback you're paying $250 million to. You should have a quarterback who, if he needs to, can take control of the game. And I think that's the other part that they're getting funneled into. They're not seeing that. They're seeing this guy who's coming in, getting paid all this money to be a game manager. And if those gifts aren't there, it's ugly. Even if they're given the gifts, it's ugly and coming down to the wire. Like, I guess the other part they have that you could feel is, was the defense get tired again? It's like we're over here busting our backs. We give you guys 3 turnovers on plus side of the field. We control everything, and you barely get us the win. Like, how many more like when does that friction boil over? When does that frustration boil over?
So I guess I've decided one of my key problems with the Broncos with Broncos fans right now is like we're acting like we're the Chiefs or like we're the Peyton Manning Broncos, and we should be expecting to be like after what we saw last year. I mean, and what
I
we saw.
think it's more of the not the expectation of what the Denver Broncos should be. I think it's more of people wanting to hold Russell Wilson to the expectation of what they thought he should be, and what they paid, and what Broncos is essentially paid for, and haven't gotten it anywhere near. I think that's more of the disconnect than it is with
The Broncos paid for a quarterback to come win them football games. And that's exactly what Russell Wilson has done 5 out of 6 times the last 6 weeks. And you're telling me, and I want to talk about the game manager thing. How can you be a game manager on a team with this little talent? Game managers, Brock Purdy, Tom Brady, people that come in and are surrounded by talent.
Then can he be a game
manager?
That's
Guess who isn't surrounded by talent? Russell Wilson. Guess who doesn't have a receiver guess who has one receiver, a single receiver that he actually trusts? And that's Russell Wilson has one receiver. You know who else only has one receiver? Justin Herbert, who has a worse record than Russell Wilson does, but I don't hear anybody giving any crap to Justin Herbert. Yeah,
I think you have some bigger clowns in the way over there, though.
Huh?
I think you have a giant clown as a head coach. It's like,
I
say,
no, absolutely.
if we give Russell Wilson the Nathaniel Hackett excuse, you might have to give Herbert the Justin Staley.
Why does Justin Herbert get a pass and say it's the head coach's fault, but we can't say when Jerry Jeudy is wide open twice during the game? Everyone blames Russell Wilson for being washed up, not being able to see him. Even the coach throwing him under the bus. Guess what, dude? Watch the film. Watch the All 22. I mean, these are resources that I have that I can watch. Jerry Jeudy isn't open by the time Russell Wilson has to roll out and has got a 6'5", 250-pound man trying to take his head off. You know what? You want him to – okay, look at CJ Stroud. We sacked him 5 times, right? We got to him 5 times. That's a lot of sacks. But you know what? When we didn't get to him, you know what he was doing? He was standing in the pocket for 4+ seconds, waiting for his receivers to get open downfield. You know who doesn't have that? Russell Wilson. He is running for his life out there. I'd love Jerry Jeudy to take 1 snap under center and then have the amount of time that Russell Wilson does on average before he has to roll out and try to make a miracle play happen. And then he'd understand, because guys, he doesn't have the time to throw the ball. When he does have time to throw the ball, it's because he's made it himself. That interception that he threw at the end of the game, he had no idea. All he knew was he was about to get sacked and knew he couldn't take a sack and was trying to get rid of the ball. He should have thrown it higher, yes. But you know what? That was the first time in 5 weeks when given the opportunity to win the game, Russell Wilson didn't. So all I've seen is a quarterback that has put together the second or third most comeback drives in the NFL this season, getting paid to win football games. And you know what, Broncos country? You don't have Justin Herbert. You don't have Aaron Rodgers. You don't have Patrick Mahomes. You have Russell Wilson. You're not going to see 300 yards a game. You're not going to see 40 touchdowns. But you know what? He's got 21 touchdowns this year. He could easily go for just shy of 30. And I'm telling you, if you told me that Russell Wilson had a damn near 3 or 4 to 1 touchdown interception ratio, just under 30 touchdowns, and the Broncos went 10-7, I'd be a happy camper. I don't know why everyone else can't get on board with this. Guys, this is the situation we're in. We paid a quarterback way more money than he probably should have made because everything in his past said he would be that guy. And now we got to sit with our toys in our bathtub that we picked out until the water's cold. And you know what? It's not going to be for another 2 more years. So let's buckle down. Let's work with what we got. Clearly, this is working enough to make us get us into the playoffs. And you know what? If we don't get in the playoffs this year, keep it running similarly the same. Let's try to get some young talent in here and run it back next year. Because if you run it back next year and you don't lose against the cupcake teams like the Raiders and Washington, we're not even having this discussion right now.
So I guess 2 things. I was looking at pocket times actually earlier too. Russ actually does have one of the higher pocket times in the NFL. The offensive line has actually done a really good job this year at keeping him protected in the pocket. He's at 2.7 seconds, which is tied for second in the league. So he does have the time, but the reason why I think he does have the time is that they've done a really good job at keeping this simple, getting the run game to keep things affected and getting him on, and eventually, on all the plays where we're actually getting him on the move and getting him out. So I do think that I think he's more successful when we're taking him out of the pocket ourselves versus having him evade and run around bootlegs and scrambles. We've seen him be more effective when he's outside of the pocket, but he does have the time to do it. The problem is when you're down 2 scores, like we saw here against Houston, what's going to happen? They're going to go pass, and that's been a complete failure every game this season when Denver's put the pass as the primary way to get offensive production. It's just not been successful in any game they've played. They've allowed it to be more of this balanced attack or run heavy 60-40 split, and that's when they're successful. But the problem is the defense isn't going to keep them up 3 scores or 3 turnovers and keep things down and keep the game as close as they can sometimes. I mean, there's going to be, when we play the Chargers are good at getting, they do have necessarily the best weapons, but they have weapons that have hurt us before in Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. So, I mean, if we go up down 14-0 again this week, are we going to be able to stay true to who we are, or do we hit panic button? And I think that falls more on coaching than it does on Rush. Stay true to what you've done, and you got a chance. We haven't seen that lately. Or last week, we seen them go straight, put it all on Russ's back, and the defense was allowing 200. What? How many yards did Collins end up with? 200 and something.
190, but I don't
Right
even
under.
care about that because they had 350 total yards. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care 200 of it for one player. I care about how many yards you left as a whole.
Yeah, and I mean, and the defense had another good game. I mean, I don't know. It's just the hodgepodge of just
So
discontentness.
everyone during the 5-game winning streak was like, what happens when we don't win the turnover battle? What happens when we don't win the turnover? What happens when you don't have this many? I don't see any valid argument for that.
Well, I mean, so far right now, I guess the argument is if they don't win the turnover battle, they lose. So we're gonna have to continue to see it.
The one time we lost the turnover battle, we lost it by 3, and we had 4 shots to win the game at the end.
I think that what does that? I don't know, man. It goes to show the defense keeps winning.
So are you telling me that if we only lose it by 2, we win that game?
No,
it was a 1 possession game. If it's only 1, do we win that game? That's what I'm saying.
Everyone
was freaking out and saying, "What happens if we don't win the turnover battle?" Well, we saw. We are still a competitive football team.
I don't know.
That's what I saw.
I think part of my problem is, I'll be honest, I don't trust Russell Wilson to be that guy, but I do trust Sean Payton enough to make him enough of a guy to win those games. I think that's the key, is this quarterback and head coach relationship that's going to carry us through if they've got any chance. It's going to have to be. Sean Payton's shown that he's been willing to meet Russ at the level, and that's when we saw the 5 wins start to happen. When they stopped saying, okay, I'm throwing this all on Russ. Russ is going to throw 35 times a game, and we got to get more committed to the run. The rushing attempts continuously increased week after week, and we saw a 5-win game streak happen. Now, you can't do that if you're down 2 scores. It's not going to happen. But they've got to find a way to get it to work enough for them to score in those critical moments. You can't let drives live and die at the 45-yard line. You just can't. That's like their kryptonite right now, is essentially the 26 to the 45, and they just can't seem to figure out something to work in that section. I mean, the other thing that you and I highlighted when we were talking in text the other day, 0 for 11 on third downs. You're not going to be able to stay in many games if you go 0 for 11 on third downs. So
I don't know how, but they did.
We're just so like when we honestly break down the Broncos, we can't like when we're getting 3+ turnovers and we're giving the offense all these opportunities, we're like, hey, this defense made sure we were in a position to win. But when it all falls off the wheels like this, let's say Denver found a way to squeak out a win off a field goal or whatever, like we may not even be able to like turn around and say, hey, this worked great, because it was just complete and utter ugliness from top to bottom, but they just found a way to win. I guess it's more of, you got to just commend their perseverance. That's what our success is built on, perseverance. Because hell, there was nothing pretty about last week's game. Nothing.
There's nothing pretty about any of the last
no. I mean, the defense looks great.
This is why I don't know why people are so surprised. Like, the only way the Broncos team can beat this Texans team is on defense, is to just muck it up. Just do not let them get those huge chunk plays. And while they got a couple, because it's inevitable, they generally did a really good job of preventing those giant chunk plays from happening, and a lot of bending without breaking. And on the flip side of the ball,
I hate the bend don't break. We go back.
Hey, bend don't break is the only reason that wasn't Miami part 2.
It brings
the bend don't break was the only reason. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I saw when we have a -3 in the turnover differential, it's the bend don't break that kept us in that game. It's because when we're giving them the ball on our half of the field, the defense didn't let them in the end zone. They made them work for their end zone opportunities, and they held them out more often than not. And that is like that. And that's exactly what we need. And that's exactly what this is what the defense has been for the last few years. This is what the defense
And
was last year.
it's gonna lead me
This
to my frustration point
this
right here.
and so if people are gonna try to use the like, well, Russ for the like, well, since Russ got here, we're 10-17, whatever it is. If people are gonna do that, be like, cool. Well, then look at what the defense has been and take out those 5 games of bad and look at what they've been, because people like to look at the small sample size and then say, look how bad it is. We can't trust the defense to provide all these turnovers. And then they also look at that same small sample size and of Russell Wilson playing well. And they're like, it's too small of a sample size to tell. It's like, guys, no, pick one, right? So, like, for me, look at the big sample size. Outside of the first 5-6 games of the year, the last 3 years, this Broncos defense has been phenomenal and incredibly reliable. And now we finally have an offense that can put up 20-ish points a game. And that's all we asked for last year, right? We said, look how many games we could have won if we could just put up 20 points last year. And that's what we're doing this year. It's the exact same thing as last year, but we're putting up those points. And the way we're putting up those points is by taking care of the football. And obviously turnovers have been a big factor. But I mean, you lose that turnover battle. Russ doesn't throw that last interception. You still lose by 2 and you score over 20 points. Like, so I don't understand what the panic is, because at the end of the day, the Texans are a really, really good football team.
I don't even think it has to be the Texans.
And we almost beat them 0 for 11 on third downs with a -3 turnover diff.
I don't think this game has to be the Texans. I mean, we could place the Texans with any opponent. This could be the Kansas City Chiefs or the New York Jets. They're gonna hit the panic button. We will hit the panic button as Broncos country, regardless of the loss. Most importantly, I think the other part that when I kind of look at this, and the reason why I don't like the bend don't break, is because that was essentially the entire mentality of a previous head coach we had in Vic Fangio, and I have nothing against Vic. I think out of the three damaged good head coaches we've had from this terrible era, I would say I think I liked Vic Fangio the most, and I think he had the best chance at success of the three. But it goes back to being, the question becomes, we're essentially running this team similar to what that Vic Fangio team was. You had a quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, who was good at playing safe, protecting the football, run heavy, bend don't break type approach on defense. So I think that's where my personal frustration comes with this team. And you could take Russell's name off of it completely. Let's just say it's the $250 million quarterback, the all-pro, all these accolades, whatever. I think my frustration becomes that it should look better offensively, because, I mean, we're essentially operating at the same standard of what we had Teddy Bridgewater to do. Not saying Teddy's going to do it at the same level as Russ did, but we're essentially just carbon copying what that had and saying, here's a slightly better version, because that's what we've asked Russell Wilson to be, and that's what he's done. And once again, it creates that friction. What was the friction of that Vic Fangio team? Eventually, the defense just got tired. They're like, we can't do this all the time. It became a frustration. And now you got guys who've been here and they've gone through some of it. And you got Justin Simmons, etc. So let's look at this in a negative light. Let's say they come out, we lose to Chargers, we lose to Lions. We know playoffs off the table. When does it become enough for some of those key players? When is this version or this model enough? Because this game manager, bend don't break, it works when you have Teddy Bridgewater and that's your excuse, and it sucks for fans in general because it's just not a great style of football and it's typically not very successful. Or, I mean, like, when is it enough? I guess I'm playing the devil advocate for the frustrated fan here. I know that there's not really a way out of this.
And here's my answer to your devil advocate and to all of the frustrated fans. You got to ask yourself, were you excited when we signed Russell Wilson? Yes or no? 99% of Broncos fans will say yes. They were excited when we signed Russell Wilson. And if they say, oh, I knew there was something off, they're lying.
No, never. Yeah, no. Well, okay, hold on.
Russell Wilson.
I think we need to ask a two-part question. So I think because the Russell Wilson thing is a two-part question. And I think this is where you'll get the honest deviation from the answers. were most Bronco fans excited when the Broncos traded for Russell Wilson? I would say that's 99% yes. Now you go to the contract. Were Broncos country happy when they signed Russell Wilson to a massive extension without seeing what he looked like on the field coming
Yeah,
off
dude,
finger injury?
I would absolutely love to go get a Lamborghini and not have to pay for it.
Right?
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
You think Russell Wilson made that big stink in Seattle and came here without we're going to sign you to an extension the moment you get here? No. Russell Wilson doesn't come here without that.
Oh, no.
And so for me, when people throw that in the face, it's like, oh, so you just wanted the Lamborghini for free. Okay, I see. You're irrational. Because that's what it is. People try to be like, oh, well, we shouldn't have signed him without letting him play. Guess what? That's not how contracts work.
Essentially, though, they didn't have to. They didn't have to sign him. They didn't even have to agree to that.
They wouldn't have gotten Russell then.
I honestly, at that point, Seattle wanted to move him. They wanted to move him.
You'd be dumb to not want Russell Wilson.
Every
single thing, at that point, when we were trading for him, every single thing in Russell Wilson's career said he's going to be the exact same person. He's been consistent. And another thing I want to talk about is Russell Wilson's numbers, because he is exactly on track to have the exact same numbers, even passing yards, as the 2 Super Bowls he's went to.
So what's the difference?
I just want to say, what the difference is he doesn't have nearly the talented team he had around him with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch and all of that star-studded cast.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying. Here's why I asked about the Russell Wilson thing, because you do not get Russell Wilson without promising him an extension before he comes here. And you would be dumb, because if the Broncos didn't do it, somebody else would have done it.
Is it bad that I wish somebody else would have done it?
Now, sure. but that's because hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? But don't sit over there acting like, no, I'm not actually saying you. I'm saying General Peach. Don't be sitting over there acting like you knew this was going to happen, because everything in Russell Wilson's career told you he was going to come here and be phenomenal. The only games he's ever missed in his career happened in that last season, and it's because he tweaked his fingers. Like, what? There's nobody could have seen the cliff. So the question I ask is, were you excited when Russell Wilson became a Bronco? 99% of people say yes. You made your bed, now sleep in it. That's my answer to frustrated fans. You can't get out of it. I'm sorry. It sucks. He is not the Russell Wilson you thought you were getting. You still have to pay him that money, whether he's playing for your football team or not. Now, would you rather get rid of him sooner rather than later and sink your team? Or would you maybe want to plug along and play some competitive football and get some younger guys some meaningful experience in this league and take some time to see what you have, so that way in 2 years you can actually look at a young, kind of built out team that you've been trying to build for the last 3 years and then be like, okay, what type of young quarterback would fit with this team? That way you have a plan, you have something you're going for. But you know what? Your plan for the next 2 years has Russell Wilson involved. And if you can't get that into your mind, you're just going to be a miserable Broncos fan for 2 years.
There are ways around. They're not pleasant ways,
not smart ways.
Moving him now, if you're going to move him, then you move him sooner. Like, let's say you're because you can't sit there and look at it and be like, okay, well, we're just going to take 1 more year and then we're going to let him go, because it makes it a mess with the money. It makes it even uglier than what it is. So essentially, you have between now and the 5th day of next year to say, like, hey, are we going to buy in this or are we not? Because at least you could split up the $85 million over 2 years. It's still a massive cap hit over 2 years. It's like what, 40? It's 45 million.
Who do we get?
No,
everyone wants to move on from Russell Wilson. Who's your replacement for a 500 football team this late in the year?
I think if you're playing, I think it also depends on what it looks like. Let's say that we end up 8 wins, something like that. Let's just hypothetically. I mean, if you're the disgruntled Broncos fan, I mean, I could see why you'd want to go and say, "Hey, we're going to finish right here outside the top 12. There's going to be these young plethora of quarterbacks that are coming through, and you may not. You're gonna just take it on the chin, and say, "Hey, we're committing to a complete and utter rebuild, and we're gonna suck." But I guess there's hope for the future. That's what you're essentially saying. You're hoping for this longevity suit. That's
It's
what
too
you're
late.
hoping for.
It's too late. If you wanted to rebuild, you had to do it before the trade deadline when you had a chance at the first overall the first overall pick, picking outside of the top 12. You're going to draft yourself another Drew Lock, and then we're going to be locked into some more mediocre quarterback play for the next 4 years. But instead of that, because what are we going to do? Great, let's rebuild. Let's draft a quarterback that, for all we know, might be the next Tom Brady, but we're not going to know because we're going to throw in a young quarterback with 0 NFL experience behind an inexperienced line with no weapons, with no defense, because we just traded everyone away to rebuild the team.
Yeah, there's no perfect scenario here. I mean, it's
absolutely flamed. That's why I'm saying take Russ.
deal with. I mean, yeah, I guess
2 years and build a team so that when you get that young quarterback, you're
it's
not
hard to.
throwing him into a bleep show. You're throwing him into a team with with a little bit of experience, with some sort of semblance, because the last thing you want is to ruin a guy before he gets the
No,
chance.
absolutely, I agree.
He doesn't have the protection or
Yeah,
weapons.
the Broncos are truly in a horrible predicament with this because if you say build, then you're saying build, and yeah, we can't. You're going to build with the few draft picks you have. That's great. You're going to get like this year. It's not. We look forward to the draft. It's 6 picks with only 1 premium pick. There's nothing in the second round.
I don't understand it. What if we don't have good enough picks to get good off the quarterback? Why would we be able to get a quarterback?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just
You're a
saying,
better position
yeah.
player at 14 overall than you are a quarterback.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what
I
I'm
mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, what I'm saying is like you were really there's not a real winning situation because
There
of
isn't,
where
and
we
that's
landed.
what I'm saying. You made your
I mean,
beds.
essentially, yeah, because I mean, we're talking about building
Save
for a
us.
quarterback 2 or 3 years down the road, and
Yes.
unfortunately, like even right now, as we go into next season, this is why I think a lot of other reasons Bronco country is frustrated because they're sitting 20 mil beneath the cap before you even account for free agent class, resigning, or the draft class. After you let's factor in draft class, usually 8 to 10 million usually is what it is a year. You're sitting at 30 million below the black, and we're talking about trying to bring back key free agents. You got Cushenberry, you got other guys that you need to bring back. I mean, there's not it's there's ways to get it, but it lives and dies with Russ. I mean, you can talk about restructure, but if you restructure, does that extend the tenure? Because that's the biggest contract you have to restructure. Because McGlinchey, what he can restructure, but it's not going to give you a ton of relief because he's in year 1 of that massive. I mean, either way, they're both technically in year 1 of their extension. So
But
that's the hard part. That's why I'm saying it's hard to say that this team may get better next year when they're looking at possibly having to let go of resources.
they don't. I'm not saying they need to get better.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, I
I'm
think
saying
when we're
that's
talking Broncos fans trying to be
yeah, yeah.
positive.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but not even being positive. You don't need to get better. You just need to be the same as you've been for the second half of the season. Because if the Broncos team that played the Bills played the Washington Commanders and the Raiders, they would have won.
Well, we better hope so. We're gonna get redemption right here against the
But
Raiders in a
that's
couple
what
weeks.
I'm saying is if you can take this momentum and be like, damn, it was a bummer it took us too long to find this out for this season, but hey, we've got it now. It's like when you find out, I don't know if you golf, but I golf. And for me, if I'm golfing like a Saturday, Sunday, like I know I'm golfing back-to-back days, like I don't get frustrated if I start my first round on Saturday and I play terribly and I don't figure out my swing until like the 14th hole. Part of me is like, man, now I'm playing really well, but I wish I could have done this earlier so I could have saved the round. No. Take what you've learned from that round and now apply it to your next round. And that's all I'm saying for this season. They found their swing. So now just keep on making it, smoothing it out, work out those kinks so that you don't have any -3 turnover games. Use the rest of the season, work out those kinks, use your draft position and all of your drafts to build around the quarterback position, build a foundation, because the quarterback is your house. Build the foundation, because if you just put a house on a foundationless property, it's going to crumble. And that's what I think happened to Drew Lock. That's what I think happens to so many young quarterbacks out there. That could have happened to Zach Wilson for all we know.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. That's why
we're just
in a further continuation of the madness. That's where we're at.
There isn't a good way out, but there is a right way out. And the right way out is to hang on to Russ for at least 2 more years and use all of your assets building elsewhere.
Okay.
And you know what?
Two-part question for that. For just this mentality.
Maybe next year there's some super crazy quarterback prospect that comes out of nowhere that intrigues us. And maybe then when we have draft capital, because we haven't given away our pick to the Saints, like maybe then we can like trade up and get a quarterback. Even next year, I'd be more okay with it. But drafting a quarterback this year and letting go of Russ is going to do nothing but stunt that quarterback's career and put Broncos fans into more misery.
No, I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, it's hard. So I guess, I do envision a way that there is a possibility to take a quarterback, but you have to absolutely love that quarterback. And you have to be, there's not any other way you can word this is you'd be drafting a guy in a similar role as Jordan Love, where he's sitting probably for that year or two, because you're not going to move Russ. But I mean, that's the only way I would even envision a quarterback being taken this year.
I would even be fine with that. You know what? If you had some dude that was like super lowly scouted that you just absolutely love and you want to throw a 2nd or 3rd round pick on him and let him sit behind Russ for 2 years, Sure, but getting rid of Russ does nothing but tie your hands.
Your hands are tied regardless.
All right,
yeah.
So your hands are tied.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go, man. You're stuck. This is it.
They're now bolted above your head.
This becomes the question that I have, the 2 parts that I have, or the stance that I have. Because in reality, they're going to do what they're going to do. I mean, this is where they're at. But one thing we've known about Sean Payton, he's not a patient man. He doesn't like to sit here and let things poke around. We're talking at using 3 out of his 5 years essentially just to be handcuffed to Russ. I don't know if he's okay with that. I don't know if I was in his position, I'm not sure that I would be okay with it, knowing that this may be the ceiling, that average to mediocre play may be the ceiling. I don't know if I would be like, I can build around this and make this successful, because at the end of the day, it's still an evaluation of himself. And he has certain things he's got to meet, and different things that his expectations are for both from above and from his own mindset. I'm not sure that it's something that he has the patience to just buy into. I don't know. Other thing, players, you got guys like Patrick Surtain, Jerry Jeudy, these other younger guys. Are they okay with wanting to sit around and just be like, hey, we're stuck with Russ. I guess this is what we're going to be. Maybe we'll be good. Maybe we won't.
Patrick Surtain, absolutely. Yes.
I can see him.
Patrick Surtain would have no problem sticking out 2 years because he's a baby.
I guess, do you want to just...
Jerry Jeudy needs to not be a Bronco.
He should have been gone on the deadline.
Not even because I don't think he's going to be good. I think it's just both the franchise and the player need a fresh start from each other.
They're not built for the same.
And you know what? And Broncos players are gonna absolutely hate, or Broncos fans are gonna absolutely hate to see it. But as soon as the Broncos move on from Jerry Jeudy, the Broncos wide receiver room is gonna be better, and Jerry Judy's gonna go light it up somewhere. But both can be true. Both the Broncos wide receiver room can be better without Jerry Jeudy, and Jerry Jeudy can go on and light it up somewhere. Because sometimes, especially after all that Jerry's been through, I mean, Jerry's had a rough time from the fans. Just the fans alone here. I couldn't imagine. I bet you if Jerry Jeudy could go to almost any team and would be beloved by those fans. because he's a good player. He is just not here. There's just too much something below the surface that is going on. Jerry Jeudy and Denver is just not the match that we thought it would be, and that's fine. And I think Jerry Jeudy should just move on anyway. Justin Simmons, I mean, if he really wants a ring, yeah, he should move on too. But for me, it seems like to me Justin Simmons is content being a Bronco and waiting for this team to turn around. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I think Sean Payton is patient enough. I do. Because I think Sean Payton sees the situation. I think he knows. I think he knows that the best way to go about it, because he doesn't have to be patient. He could already be like, yeah, Russ is done the moment it's financially possible to get rid of him. But that doesn't mean he has to sit on his hands and do nothing. He can do everything else. And boy, you know how Sean Payton likes his guys. And you know that one off season was not enough for Sean Payton to build a Sean Payton team. So he's got plenty of other work to do these next 2 off seasons. And then once he's got a team that is built the way he likes it, then he can go look. And especially with Sean Payton, I feel like it would be better for him to build a team first and then go look at quarterbacks himself, because we all know Sean Payton is a scout and has say in who we draft and all of that. So once he has the team he wants, then let Sean look through the candidates and be like, this is the dude that's going to fit our team. Them to the Wolves right away. And again, you know, it might not be the way he wants to go about it, but hey, good coaches have to be patient. You cannot, as somebody who's worked with kids, you cannot be a coach and not have patience. And I think even if he shows frustration, I think he knows that the right thing to do is to slowly build around Russ until he can cut the strings loose responsibly.
I mean, very well. I mean, he could be up in Mr. Penner's office being like, hey, how much money you going to give me to get rid of this? We don't even, who knows where Sean Payton's truly at with it.
It's tough to say. That dude is such a character.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, we do know that he's visibly frustrated. You can see it. I mean, and he's right. He has every right to be frustrated. I mean, the offense does look discombobulated that sometimes they do get lost. You could definitely see there's a communication issue sometimes. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he's kind of put out there, but at the same time, you're the coach. You should hold yourself accountable with that too, and figure out what the problem is. I mean, I would surely hope that it isn't all on the head and shoulders of Russell Wilson for those issues that he continuously blasts in. So every presser that he gets a chance to when he talks offensive woes. So, I mean, we'll have to see where it goes with that. I mean, do you guess the other part is there is a way to fix it. Do you approach Russell Wilson and say, hey, let's do the restructure? This hasn't gone the way you've seen it. This hasn't gone the way we've seen it. You're not the quarterback we hoped you were. You're not exactly content here. I mean, the only problem is that's in Russ's court. I mean, he's going to get his money out of the way.
The issue with that is, I think Russ wants to play more than he wants money.
You think he'll do it?
If it guarantees he gets to play, yes. I think if the Broncos came to him and said, look, bro, we are going to cut you and eat your dead money, or you're going to restructure your deal. I think Russ knows that his play the last year and a half isn't going to get him a job somewhere the way it would
without a competition, at least.
If he restructured. So I feel like Russ would restructure, but it would definitely be like but only if I'm like somehow guaranteed like X amount of playing time or years or something, because I feel like he just wants to play. And, part of that conversation might be like, look, Russ, I think you know better than any of us you're not the same dude. I'm sure you can feel it. And it might be a tough conversation to be like, dude, you're still our quarterback because we don't have a choice. We made that bet and we're sleeping in it. But if you restructure, it'll allow us to support you more. And if you approach him with that, like, you're still our guy. we're not going to restructure this contract just so that we can cut you more affordably.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm just
We're
kidding.
doing this to support you. And if you can swing it to him that way and be like, you're still playing football, but we just, goes the Tom Brady route. Like Tom Brady was so successful because he took hometown discounts so he could help the team. And, if you pitch it to him like that, you might actually get a good response out of it, especially if this season, if you finish 10-7 and miss the playoffs.
Yeah, we're talking this in a whole different light at that point.
But I'm saying just that conversation with Russ is going to go a lot different, because Russ could be like, yeah, a playmaker or two with some extra salary room could really put us over that edge that we need to get into the playoffs again. So yeah, I think that would be smart. I think that would be a really intelligent thing to do for the Broncos. And I just think it's a matter of both parties, being Russ and the Broncos, need to swallow a little bit of pride and find a way to work something out for the better of the team and the city, really.
All right. And on the spot question that's out of the realm of reality right now, do you still feel like the Broncos could win a Super Bowl with Russ at helm? Or is that ship sailed?
Yes, I do, because I see a lot of Russ. I see a lot of 2015 Peyton and Russ. Take out that last drive of that Texans game. Well, just take out the Texans game. During that 5-game win streak, one of the things that really stood out to me was, even though Russ didn't have a super lighted up game, man, when it came to getting a game-winning drive, or when you were like, damn, we really need points here, he delivered. And against the Vikings, he delivered twice, and Jerry Jeudy dropped one of them, right? So that was the formula the Broncos used. And I think I said this on my first show that I did with you. The formula for winning with this team is very similar to the formula that the Super Bowl 50 Broncos had, which is you have an incredible defense that's going to give you good field position. You have a good, solid run game, and you have a quarterback that will make a play when he needs to make a play. And I've seen spurts of that from Russ, and definitely during those 5-game stretch, man, even if Russ isn't the Russ he used to be throwing 40 touchdowns, that's fine. If we have a stout defense, a good run game, and Russ can make a play when we need it a few times a game, that's exactly how the Broncos won the Super Bowl with Peyton. Peyton got benched that year because he was playing so poorly. I was at that game. He got booed off the field the same game he set the passing yards because he threw 5 interceptions in the first half. It's the same formula, just with significantly less talent. So if your question is, if my only requirement is Russ at the helm, yeah, absolutely, this team could win a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, there's way too many other pieces that need to be fixed to keep Russ at the helm and win a Super Bowl. So yes and no, I guess, is the answer.
Yeah, no, I get you.
To answer.
I get you. And, just relating it to that.
You throw Russ on the 49ers, Super Bowl instantly.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm just not sure the Broncos have that level of talent across the board.
No, they don't. No, they absolutely don't. That's what
I've been in arguments with. Yeah, and and it's a catch-22 of Broncos country, because you get on this 5-game win streak and you get fans who are saying, we beat the Chiefs, we're as good as the Chiefs, and we have just as much talent as the Chiefs, and there's nowhere near.
We might have as much talent as the Chiefs.
But that's
because all of the Chiefs' talent is in 2 players.
Yeah,
outside of Travis Kelce, I guess maybe 3 players. Okay, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, unbelievably otherworldly talent.
That might be more talent.
But no, hold on. Travis Kelce was talking about retirement this year, A, and B, has looked tired this year. I don't know about you, Travis Kelce, outside of the first few weeks, has not looked the same this year, as is the whole Chiefs. And Isaiah Pacheco is pretty talented. But again, that's like you were saying, those 2-3 people
you forgot the best talent they have on that damn team outside of Patrick Mahomes. What about Creed Humphrey, man? Best center in the game. You got to give the big guy some love, man.
There you go. Exactly.
I,
And
I
of course, and their
Chris
defense
Jones. I mean,
their defense is filthy. Their defense is filthy. But again, so is the Broncos defense.
man, I'm not gonna lie. Nick Bolton might be my favorite backer in the league, and that sucks that he's a Kansas City Chiefs. The dude's just a dog, man.
But no, Broncos have a better defense than the Chiefs, hands down.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so like, yeah, there's talent there, but like we're really just comparing offensive talent, and it's like, yeah, the Chiefs are more talented. That's why they have a better record, but they're not that much more talented this year, which is why they're not that much further ahead than the Broncos this year. I mean, you look at those teams, look at the teams that have those like crazy good records, man. Those are the talented teams. Like the Eagles and the Niners, those are the talented teams. Like,
yeah,
really
but I mean, the Chiefs are really great at lulling us into this regular season muse of them, and then playoffs come, and they turn into a completely different team every playoff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The last few years they've been pretty dominant regular season. This year, they outside of Kelsey, they just don't have a passing threat.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, you're talking about Butterfinger, left and right.
I mean, how many?
Sky Moore had a chance to completely take the Broncos win off the boards and crush all of us weeks ago, but he lit the touchdown.
That's the thing. There's literally 4 Kansas City games that have been decided by a dropped ball.
Yeah, no, I believe
and they're all losses. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I'll take it for sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. But yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I want to just briefly comment on this Chargers game because the Chargers are so unbelievably gettable right now. It's not even funny. Not only is this we need to win this game, we should win this game. The Chargers defense, it has been, other than, I mean, I know they just shut out New England, but that's New England, whatever. But the Chargers defense can't stop anybody. And with all of the injuries they have at wide receiver, man, you slap PS2 on Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler has been having a terrible year.
Yeah, he's been down.
The dude, like, what is the dude? The dude is known because he's great at running. He'll get 10 to 12 carries, and then he'll also get 7 to 8 targets. Well, he's dropping like 4 or 5 of those targets. And what's his face? Dummy that needs to be fired, their coach.
Staley.
Yes, Brandon Staley was just saying that they're considering giving their backup runs. So if you're telling me their 2 biggest weapons are Keenan Allen and a dude that they're starting to split carries with his backup, and all you have to do is throw on, I think the Broncos score 20 points, they win this game. No chance.
My only caution is it's an NFL game, man. You can't get lulled into it. This has like trap game written all over it for the Broncos because this is once again
trap game.
It's not really a trap game. It's
Broncos are 60% to 40% dogs or 65-35.
Oh, you're right.
Dogs.
They're
heavy dogs.
Yeah, I think that's
ridiculous. The line says it's a toss-up giving home field advantage, but like ESPN's matchup predictor has like 65% Chargers, man.
I could see that. Why? I mean, Broncos continue to be inconsistent.
But again, that's why I'm saying this isn't even a you could win the game. I think the Broncos should win this game. This is like
my only issue
is dysfunctional franchise that they're playing. And I'll tell you one thing that the Broncos are no longer. They are not a dysfunctional franchise. They have good ownership. They have a good coach. Like, they're solid. They just got some stuff on the field to figure out. Man, the team they're going up against, Staley's going to be coaching for his job.
Oh, should have already happened.
It should have been, but this might be the you're done, Staley.
Yeah. My big thing with the Broncos, and the one thing I caution Broncos country is this. One thing that we've noticed this season is we tend to play to the level of our opponent frequently. We tend to we come to their level for some reason. We've seen it with the or especially in the earlier part of our season during that stretch. We tend to play down to our opponents and play up when it's this wonderful run. So I guess this week will be the telltale. Can we break away from that mold? Can we put on the dominant performance that they should be able to? Especially if you're getting 3 turnovers or something like that tomorrow. This needs to be a statement game, and unfortunately, either way, if you win, you got to make a statement. But if you lose, it makes a statement. So either way, there's a statement being made tomorrow.
This is the most important game that Russ has played in a Broncos uniform.
Yep.
I mean, hands down. And the thing is, and if they win, next week's the most important game he's played in a Broncos uniform.
Yep.
And so on and so forth until they lose. They lose 3 games.
We can't let tomorrow two more games. Total of 3 games from the streak. We cannot let a new streak start tomorrow or continue. We cannot. They cannot.
Well, and especially with the Lions coming up, man. I mean, you got the Chargers twice, you got the Raiders, and you got the Patriots. Yeah. You gotta. You lose to the Lions, man. I don't care. Just like I didn't care that you lost to the
Texans. Can't lose to any of the other opponents left on the schedule.
But dude, I'm telling you, like I was in here for the last hour, for the last 61 minutes, I have been yelling into this mic defending the Broncos against Broncos country. If they lose any of those 4 games, I am going to be on the other side of the fence, and there isn't an excuse because
there is none.
They're a better team than the Chargers. Their record
the Raiders.
They're better than the Raiders. They're obviously better than the Patriots. You know who they're not better than? The Texans and the Lions. So you know
that could be the only 2 losses.
That's exactly. And you know what? Like I said, 10-7. I don't care if you make the playoffs or not because we're not winning the Super Bowl. So try to find your swing, Broncos. Try to find your golf swing and take that swing into your next round. That's all. That's kind of the main takeaway I have at this point in the season. What's your prediction for this?
Well, I'm not gonna. I have to save my prediction for the pregame show, but I'll let you throw your prediction today.
Well, I will. I'll do a prediction then.
Do it real quick. I'm gonna go fire. 30 seconds or less. Go.
24. No, 27. No, 24. 24-13. Broncos. I think we get a 2-possession victory in SoFi.
All right. Well, we'll let that be the closing statement for sure, man. Hey, we're all rooting for a Broncos win. We'll be back. We'll be talking Broncos Chargers recap. We'll be here tomorrow to talk the game tomorrow, pregame with Dave and myself. Come check us out for that one. We're going to have a blast. We got so many things going on. And, hopefully when me and you get back together, we'll be talking a Broncos win over the Chargers and not
that would be next Friday.
Next Friday, correct. 7 p.m., I believe. We'll iron out the time and get it posted. But if we're talking a loss, the question next week will be, is it time to hit the panic button? I haven't pressed it yet, but who knows? We'll see.
Panic button in the trash.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. We're out.
You guys.